We've gone over a lot of color theory. We've also gone over extensively how to create different shapes in Illustrator. So now it comes down to creating a final project that's going to showcase all of those. We had spent time doing the color wheel, so the colored mandala that you're going to create is going to represent 4 different color schemes that you've already chosen on your sketch. And so we're going to have this version, and then we're also going to create a black and white version off to the side. We need to start with a new file, so I'm going to go ahead and title this with my last name, my first name, and we're going to call this Mandala Design. And I'm going to make it 11 by 8.5 with 2 artboards. Remember, the artboard that's activated is where the ruler is going to be, so Command R. So the ruler is now on this artboard. We only have to create a guide, some guidelines on this artboard. We're not going to worry about the other one. And I'm going to grab my guideline and move it over to 5.5. I'm going to move my bottom or horizontal to 4.25. The key to this is making sure that your guides are always locked. So I'm going to go ahead and lock my guides. If it says unlock, that means that they're already locked. And we're going to call this layer sketch. And we're going to bring in the sketch that I sent you that you put onto your desktop. So we're going to do File, Place, open up the sketch. You can go ahead and hit yes. And then just click down once to place it. I'm not concerned that the sketch paper matches with the size of my artboard. What I'm most concerned about is that the axis that I drew on my sketch is measured perfectly with the axis that you've just created with your guidelines. So just making sure that this is for sure the center of your circle. I don't care if this blue bounding box is telling me that it's off center. Eventually the sketch is going to leave, so all that matters is what we have drawn on top. We're going to lock this layer so that nothing happens to our sketch and I don't draw on it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a design layer. I do have to say that before we officially lock the sketch layer, we can bring down the opacity of the sketch. I would bring it down to about 50%, and what that does is it lowers the darkness of the lines and it makes it a little bit easier to see on top of your sketch. But as soon as you do that, make sure that you've locked it. So the entire time you're working, there should be a lock sign right there. Okay, and we are going to basically reuse this quadrant 3 additional times with different color schemes. So I am only having to trace this design once, and then I'm going to go ahead and place it 3 more times on my artboard. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of anchor points. So we're going to start in the center. I'm going to hold the Option and Shift key as I drag out to keep everything centered. I'm going to let go of my mouse first. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my direct selection tool and I'm going to delete just the anchors along this path. And I'm going to finish off my shape using my pen tool. So that this is now officially a closed shape. And I'll do that a couple times because I have 2 additional circles I need to do this with. I want to be able to go back and color these. And if I go and try to color that line, that's what I'm going to end up with. I have to take my pen tool and I have to connect those anchor points to make it an official shape. Because again, remember, the definition of a shape is when the beginning and the end of a line come together. My last circle, actually I have one more after this. I'm going to go ahead and delete and delete. And I'm going to finish it off with one more. Okay, so now I have 4 individual shapes that I can color later. Now I'm going to use my line tool from here on out, just because the pen tool can get kind of tricky. If I use my pen tool and I accidentally connect with an already existing anchor point, I could end up making new shapes, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my pen tool for the rest of this, or line tool. Now I can use the pen tool for this because this is not going to be connected to anything later, which is totally fine. Remember, you also have that pen curvature tool that allows you to easily bend a line. And right here, my line was not made perfectly, so when I hold my shift key down to get a perfect line, it might be a little bit off. Your hand is not as accurate as a computer, so there is a little bit of room for error. So if you do notice that one of the lines that you drew is not completely straight, then don't draw on top of it. Let the computer fix it for you. And I am going to create, I'm going to create a box, but let's see if I can use my line tool to do that. Okay, so this is actually broken up into 4 individual lines. If I hold my shift key and I select all of them, so if I click on shift and I click each one of these, I can come up to object, path, and join them together, and it should, yes, it should create a line, a shape for me. And then I can finish it off with a line going across. And I don't want to have to sit and draw each and every one of those, so I'm going to go ahead and transform each, going down 0.04 inches. Sometimes you just got to play with the number that you want to work with. Hit copy and then Command D. Okay. Now obviously some of the lines that I drew are going off the edge, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the shift key and I'm going to select all of the lines that I want. And for this end, that trick might not work because it looks like everything is going to come in at a different angle. So I might try that technique on the end. Ooh, don't lose the straightness of those lines. The shift key would be very helpful to keep everything nice and straight for you. This one's going to come over. Takes time, but once it's done, it's going to look really good if you take your time. Okay, so those lines are done. Now I'm going to work on the ones that are going this way. And because there's not that many of these, I'm not going to use the transform each tool. I'm just going to use myself to come in and do these. I am holding my shift key down though. Very important. Keep those lines nice and straight. Okay. And I really wanted these lines to match up with these, so I might have to go in and move them a little bit. So I'm going to go down, which makes And again, you're working with your sketch. Your sketch is not exactly perfect. So if there's a correction that you want to make, then make it now and just use your own judgment about where you want the lines to go. And take your time. Okay. And I'm noticing that it might look better if I match it with all of the different points. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit my sketch. Okay, that looks about right. Now, as far as these lines go, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line from the center. I haven't let go of my mouse. I'm going to hold shift and go up. This is coming from the center. So I'm going to rotate this line, holding my option key, click once, and then I'm going to hit Command D. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and just delete all these little errors. So all the little extra lines that shouldn't be there. I'm going to go ahead and take care of those. Okay, that looks good. And then last, I'm going to do my ellipse, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. Oh, I forgot about the ellipses inside of here, so let's go ahead and draw those. I ended up drawing on my sketch over here, but I want it to be over here, and I'm going to change it. I'm just going to stick with one circle. I'm going to go 22.5 because that's half of 45, and Command D. And I'm going to move this one just slightly, just a little bit. Okay, so now I have my first quadrant done. Second video is going to be me showing you how to color this.